Now I've finally got to the last full day of my trip. I just wanted to talk about some of the things I did as far as planning the trip, stuff I've done while I'm here, decisions I've made, things I do differently. I'm not trying to teach anybody how to suck eggs, I'm not trying to patronise anybody, so please don't think I'm doing that. Just a few people have asked how I plan the trip, so I thought I'd just run through a few things for you. Last May, a couple of friends told me about Interrail having a special half-price offer for some anniversary. So I took a look and it seemed like too good an opportunity to snap up. Because that was May, we're now in March. This is the first time I had a chance to make use of it. I had a few ideas of places I'd love to go and visit. First of all, looking at southeastern Europe, but getting around by train looked too complex. And Italy is somewhere I'd always wanted to explore more. Been here a few times before. But there's the whole lot in the middle and the west coast that I've not really seen much of, and this gave me a perfect opportunity. It was quite easy once I bought the pass online to download an app, register with a website, and from there you could book individual trips. It's quite good information as far as which trains needed seat reservations, which ones didn't. The regional trains, the local trains, you can just get on. I also made use of a website called Seat 61, which is a really good website, all sorts of information about travelling around Europe by train, the sort of trains you can get, how to buy tickets. Also, that's how I found about the scenic route across the Alps, the Bernina Express, which is absolutely stunning, as you may have seen from my earlier video and pictures. So I started planning the trip, also made use of the Lonely Planet guide to give me some inspiration of places to go. I knew roughly which areas I wanted to see, and thanks to the Lonely Planet that made it really easy for planning day trips, working out which cities to base myself in. And so it all came up, and then one thing I guess I was hoping for from this trip was I was just imagining all these hilltop cities, and it worked out perfectly with San Gimignano to start with. James Reeves gave me a heads up about from Florence, and then the last few days going to Siena, Perugia, Assisi and Orvieto was ideal. The views were stunning, just exactly what I imagined, so that was amazing. You probably saw the food I've loved. Pasta's been really nice, variety of sauces. Even the meat courses that I tried a few times, they were really good. Just as a general gauge, at least for Italy, when I was looking for places to eat, I basically used Google Maps and wandering around. Generally, if somewhere was like roughly €10 for the pasta course, that was kind of within my budget. Obviously, there's a lot more places if your budget's a bit higher or you wanted to spoil yourself, very easy to do. I'm just trying to keep that to a minimum. Generally speaking, the pasta course on its own, maybe with a starter or a dessert, is plenty. If you want to be a bit piggy, have the meat course as well. Certainly don't do what me and a few mates did a few years ago and go through all 4 or 5 courses, because you're absolutely stuffed, you can barely walk afterwards. The one good thing is I've done a hell of a lot of walking this trip, so hopefully that's kept some of the weight off, though I dread to think how that's going to be when I get home. Sorry, Vicky. And as far as accommodation's concerned, I was mainly used hotels.com. I've been using that for quite a few years now. For every 10 nights you stay somewhere, you get a credit to what the average spend was over those 10 nights. So especially with a trip like this and the amount of travelling I do, it kind of pays dividends. I also booked an Airbnb in Bologna, which turned out to be ideal. The street it was on was full of bars and cafes and really cool street art, so it's right up my alley, so it was really, really good. I also used Agoda for one of the nights. I forget which city that was in, but I was Googling around for prices and that came up with the best one. So that's how I booked that. And then with the Interrail pass, you can use, certainly from the UK, you can use the Eurostar for leaving and coming back into the country. So I made use of that for leaving. So I came down to Paris through to Switzerland before I started the Bernina Express trip. Going back, I'm flying just to save time. As far as where to visit in each city, I was relying on the Lonely Planet for that. Been very lucky because it's out of season. So places generally haven't been too busy. The Duomos in Milan and Florence were probably the exception, but I booked those in advance. Some of the things that I'd seen there had timed entrances, so it kind of kept the numbers under control. But generally speaking, it was That sort of things have been fine. So with all the walking around I've done, it's been nice to explore these places. And also with some of those towers, you're walking up, like with Florence, there's 460 steps, which after all the walking I've done the previous few days, I could have really done without, but the views were amazing, so it kind of made up for it. I've been very, very lucky with the weather. It's probably 16, 17 now, about 5 o'clock or so, about 4 or 5 o'clock here in Rome. Been lucky, it's been similar temperatures, even got to low 20s or low 70s for you Americans on a few days. I think I've only had rain in Paris, and the only cold day I had was I think in Chur, my very first night in Switzerland, which, given that I was up in the Alps, it's not really surprising. Well, related to that, also being based in one place for several days and doing day trips to me is a good way of doing it, because again, you're not upping and moving every day, which can get tiresome if you've got to repack and be on the move, especially if you want to leave early, just try and make the most of the day in the new place. Just being able to leave your bag there and do day trips like I did mainly in Bologna worked out really, really, really well. I certainly recommend that. Saves faffing around, just have one base or a few bases. I've done the same thing in other countries as well, and it's kind of worked out nicely. Although I'd planned most of the train journeys ahead of time, and the Eurail app made that really easy, I had soft copies of all my seat reservations. I'd printed those out as well, just in case. The rail pass itself was on the phone, so as long as I've got my phone, I'm in good shape. Likewise, my gig tickets, I printed those out as well, just to be on the safe side. But there were a few times, mainly because of the rail strikes in France, where things kind of went a little bit awry. Luckily, the 2 days it affected me, I'd actually had, just by chance, had checked the connection times while I was on the train and realised some trains had been cancelled. What I then had to do was go back onto the train app and see what could work, see what I could figure out. And in one case in Montpellier was to ask the folk in the ticket office. What I found, just generally, that aside, the Eurail app didn't always show the best connections. And in a few cases when I was going through Italy, I broke the journey down and was able to get to my destination maybe an hour or two before what it said I was going to. So, trying to get one over here. But yeah, with the train strikes, I kind of throw a few spanners in the works. So just thinking on your feet's important. A couple of times one time I ended up getting the Flixbus. Another time I booked a Flixbus and then realised I didn't need it. So yeah, things might go awry from time to time, but you just need to think quickly and work out what you're going to do. Again, Google Maps is quite good for giving you a vague idea for train and bus times. The national train sites, Trenitalia for here, SNCF, Renfe in Spain, will have their own apps with better timetables as far as dealing with the likes of strikes and things, whereas the Eurail app wasn't always that accurate. Generally it was pretty good, but there were a few times I was lucky I had a backup. But yeah, do think about coaches as well, especially for travelling on a budget. The Montpellier to Marseille took 2 hours. I think I paid 15, 20 euros, something like that. Wasn't going to break the bank, but it got me out of a hole, so there's something to bear in mind. When it comes to packing, as much as I travel, I still always pack too much. I thought I'd done a much better job this time around. I'd looked at various websites before I travelled, especially like one bag packing, just give you ideas of things to take. I knew I wasn't going to need anything smart because I wasn't going to go into any smart restaurants. Most of what I wore were like cheap t-shirts from Decathlon that are like quick dry material. Same with like undies and socks. They're the sort of things I can wash in the sink or in the shower, so I don't need to do any laundry as such. I did make use of a washing machine, the Airbnb in Bologna. That was a bit of a godsend, but as far as the clothes are concerned, I did bring too much. I knew it was going to be cold the first couple of days when I was in the Alps. And it was chilly, but I had a thermal top, I had a hoodie, I had a jacket and a coat as well, and I didn't need all of them. And at one point I seriously thought about shipping them back to England because I didn't want to lug them around for the rest of the trip, but I had a quick look in Paris, and the place that was supposed to be open wasn't, and I just thought, oh, fuck it, I'll just carry on taking it anyway. It wasn't that heavy, but that is something to factor in. If you're staying somewhere more than a couple of days, then you can plan to like maybe go to a laundrette and just do see if you can get a service wash. I've done that in New York before. Just dropped it in the morning, picked it up in the afternoon, and it's really easy. For small stuff, you can get away with washing it at the hotel to save you a few quid. I did actually, my first night in Ker in Switzerland, I exchanged the messages with a guy I follow on YouTube that does hell of a lot of travelling, but he does it with a backpack, and I was wondering how he did it. I ended up dumping a pair of jeans and a pair of shorts that night, having exchanged messages, so I thought I didn't want to carry them around. As it turned out, the weather was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be, and so I could have done the shorts, but I basically had my cheap t-shirts, pair of jeans, pair of cargo trousers, and that was it. So I've got hoodies and stuff, which, like I said, I could have done without. But yeah, it's like traveling anywhere, it's just traveling layers. If you can do that, then it just means you're carrying less around. It's generally less faff. One thing that I've sometimes struggled with, especially when I've done long road trips in the States, is trying to balance between maximising the time that you're away for and not trying to kill yourself in the process. On my last road trip to the States in September, that was yet another example when I was trying to visit various states or cover long distances. When I was planning it, I figured I can cover maybe 4 or 5 hours driving a day, which is fair enough, but then you do that 4 or 5 days in a row and it's really tiring. On that trip, certainly, I kind of related it to where I live in England, and it's the equivalent of driving to Scotland every day, 4 or 5, 6 days in a row, which is absolute nuts. There's no way on earth I'd ever do that. So this trip's been a lot better because I've been doing it by train. There have been a couple of very long travel days, like 8-10 hours, just because I've been mainly from going to Paris and Barcelona as well, but they're things I really wanted to do. In hindsight, yeah, maybe I'd fly. It's a balance then on the budgetary side of things. Is, do you want to make use of the train pass so you're not really paying anything against getting there quicker and maybe paying a bit more? Yeah, maybe in hindsight I could have flown, but it worked out right in the end. But part of me thought I was kind of wasting days just sat on trains, so that's something to think about too. Related to that is making sure that you don't tire yourself out so much that you're not enjoying yourself. I know what it's like just a general at home. Sometimes I'm kind of like low on energy and I just don't feel like doing anything. When you're away, it is kind of a waste. So do build in kind of lazy days where you're not quite doing so much, so you can get some energy back, recharge your batteries, and then you'll enjoy things a lot more. One of the things to factor when you're travelling, obviously, is eating. I was trying to get away with a coffee and a pastry for breakfast, and that would tide me through. Just keep on drinking fluids during the day and then see you through to dinner. I was relying on Google Maps and just generally mooching around trying to find where to eat. The general gauge I set myself in Italy was looking for the price of the first courses. That gave me a good gauge on how expensive the place was. Anything 8 to 10 euros was generally was in my budget, but it's going to be different from person to person and how much you want to splash out. In a lot of those places, the house wine is perfectly drinkable. You can get a quarter litre for maybe 4 euros, half a litre for 8 euros. And with a bottle of water as well, you can eat fairly comfortably. That's normally plenty. If you want to pick out and have 2 courses, it's not too bad. But I found generally a pasta course, maybe a dessert, and some wine sort me out. So, but that's going to be different from person to person. What I was saying earlier about gauging where I eat by the price. Stood in the middle of Piazza Navona, one of the most famous squares in Rome. A pretty nice building, lovely statue, smaller statues down there, and as you'll see, all these lovely restaurants with a nice view. I tried a quick look at the prices, and first 2 I looked at 16, 17 and upwards for a pasta course. So like in any big city, just get a block or 2, a few streets away from the touristy spots, and you save a small fortune, probably get yourself a much nicer meal. I think one of the biggest challenges on travelling abroad is dealing with a foreign language. Can't say I'm fluent in any language. I mean, some will say my English is really shit as well, but there you go. French is the one I know the most. although it's not good enough to hold a proper conversation, kind of a very stilted conversation. My tenses are wrong, pronunciation would be awful, but I can get by very easily in shops and restaurants and things like that. Being in Italy and Spain, where language is even more basic, I made a point of learning a few words on previous trips. Please and thank you, I'd like, can I have the bill please, stuff like that. And Google Translate's been my saviour. Where I knew I was going to have longer conversations, which has typically been in the hotels when checking in and checking out. Thankfully, most of them spoke enough English that I could get away with it. But I think most locals will appreciate you actually trying, even if it sounds awful. Certainly, if people were coming to your country and they never tried, they just spoke in their native tongue and expected you to understand, I think it's a bit rude. So yeah, just try. Even if it's only a few words, just a little bit goes a long way. One thing I will say is that if you are travelling alone, which I don't mind, I'm quite up in my own company, it's really nice to engage with other people from time to time. Been away for 4 weeks. It's a long time to not speak to anybody. My Italian is very, very basic. I can speak a few words and just about get by in a restaurant or a shop. It was really nice catching up with a bunch of mates in Barcelona for the Roger gig. Especially, well, the fact it was my birthday was by the by. It's just really nice to have a couple of days in great company, just have a good laugh and that. Did bump into a couple of the travellers going around, so hello to you if you're seeing this. Some of you will, some of you won't. But it's just really nice just to share ideas of places to go, places to avoid. It's just a nice thing to do, and that's true even if there's a group of you. Don't make the mistake I made years ago and not really speak to any other travellers. Conversation can get stale after a while, but it's just nice to meet someone new, just get some ideas, hang out a bit, it's a bit of fun. Right by the Trevi Fountain here, and obviously it's a very, very popular place for the tourists, like myself. Just a bit of common sense, just in general life, not necessarily when you're travelling, is don't walk around with your phone in your back pocket or your wallet in your back pocket or your purse. It's looking to get nicked. Just be sensible about where you stash your stuff, be it your money. If you do need to carry ID around with you, wear a money belt under your clothes or somewhere where things can't be easily got to. If you are wearing a money belt, it's good to have a spare credit card in there. If you've got one, certainly some cash. Maybe a copy of your passport info, or just use some nous. Yeah, don't be one of those people. And I was very lucky in Milan that the guys who got me only got a receipt. I was very lucky. I had a camera in my pocket, my wallet and my phone were in my jeans pocket. It could be much worse. It was a real wake-up call for me. I just relaxed a little because I'd had a few drinks. It's late at night. I've walked those tunnels before. I've just kind of got a bit blasé about it. Don't. Just keep your spidey senses on alert, just in case. As far as highlights of the trip, like I said, the hilltop cities were just everything I could have imagined. Number of cathedrals I've been in have been absolutely stunning. Some of the architecture, even on the outside, has been amazing, and the inside they're so intricate. The number of frescoes and statues, it's been really cool. That's what I love about Italy, France, Spain. A lot of the places of worship are just amazing, and there's tons and tons of them. So Bologna was great. I was just very lucky with the street I was on. Turned out that was one of the most happening streets in the city. Having the aperitivi in a few places, just nice getting a choice of snacks, rather than going out for a big meal, just have a few drinks and a quick bite to eat, or maybe do both. Even last night in Orvieto, I was just very lucky. I just stumbled across this bar, just looking at Google Maps, and the owner, Anthony, was absolutely amazing, really cool guy. This is everything that the reviews had said. Loves his music, so he's got an acoustic guitar there, so now and again he needs to start playing a bit. We were talking a lot about music, so he was listening to a lot on YouTube, and I played him some of my stuff, and it was just a really fun guy. And even a lot of the people that came in, there were some tourists, but there's some people that lived there a long time. The lady, Erica, lived there since 1958. She's 92 years old. So I did buy a book about the history of Orvieto from her perspective. I'm really looking forward to reading it. She's just from the brief chat with her, just a fascinating lady. I was just really happy I just stumbled across that place. Just pure luck. And like I said, that's the same with all the restaurants I ate in. Is just looking at Google Maps, looking at the reviews. Same with the hotels. Just a lot of it depends on your budget with both the accommodation and eating out, because you can spend a small fortune if you're not careful, especially on a long trip like this. I was trying to be reasonably careful on the food side, not to go too mad. So I did spoil myself a couple of times because, well, why not? I'm on holiday. But generally, I'm just trying to do it relatively cheap. Especially in Italy, a lot of places you can get a little carafe house wine, which is delicious. You don't need to buy an expensive bottle at all. Some of these carafes go for, say, for a quarter litre. So it's like same as a large glass, maybe €3 or €4. To half a litre, maybe €7 or €8, which is nothing really, and it's perfectly drinkable. With that, same with that and a bottle of water and a pasta dish, you can get that for 15, €16, which is pretty good. Obviously, if you're staying in hostels or you want to buy stuff from supermarkets, that can save you a lot of money. You can cook for yourself or just make your own sandwiches. I just frankly couldn't be bothered. So, but it's been fun. Would I do this again? Absolutely. It's been amazing. There's a lot more of Sicily I'd love to cover. I'd love to go to Sicily. I'd love to see the East Coast. I'm hoping to get a chance to see some of that in July. I'm going to a few gigs with some friends, so I've got a bit more chance then to explore a little bit. Sicily probably needs a good 5-6 days on its own. Maybe if I hadn't been to Paris and Barcelona, I could have squeezed it in, but I wanted to do those, so it's fine. I mean, same with any trip, it gives you a taster of places you'd love to come back to. Orvieto, just from the people I'd met, I'd love to go back to. Bologna was an amazing city, so I'd love to go there as well. I'm saying I'd like to go down to Sicily, saying that needs a good week, so that's another one to plan for sometime in the future. Well, to sum it up, it's been an amazing country. People have been fantastic. It's beautiful. The scenery's been amazing. I've loved every minute pretty much, and can't wait to come back. So if you get a chance to come to Italy, do it. You'll love it. Salute.